Now, let's talk about sales people. Because again, somebody might be listening and they might not be very good at sales, but they have a business and they want to, make it better. So they might be looking at hiring a team. What's the ideal recruiting for a sales team?
If I had to sum it down without this being a 3-hour long episode for you, I think the biggest thing is to look for people who go through your recruiting process in the same way you want them to perform in their sales seat, right? Or in their sales role. People will always be the same. They can pretend all they want. They can put on the nice shiny face and the good suit and try to, use their best manners in the interview. But if you put them through enough paces, they will always show you who they are. They either talk too much, they talk too little, they ask questions, they don't ask questions, they follow up, they don't follow up. That's who they are. And I promise you, when you hire them and put them in that seat or put them at that desk or put them up in front of your store, they will be the same person. They only know who they are. And so what happens is you want to build your sales process similar to what you expect them, or your recruiting process similar to what your sales process is. If it's short, you could make it short. If it's long, put them through lots of paces and then really pay attention. Do people follow up? I mean, I even know of companies where they tell people they want to hire, they'll tell them no. Say, no, we pick somebody else, because they want to see who comes back afterwards and says, no, I am a good candidate. How can I get this job? What can I do to show you? Because I promise you, prospects will tell them no. And then do they fold and go sit under the desk, or do they fight for the deal and say, no, you shouldn't say no, and here's why? I promise you, that's who you want.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. That's a really good one. I like that. It's a good little test there.
And I made that mistake early on when I was hiring salespeople. Is that this gentleman sat in front of me and was talking and talking and talking. And I would ask him a question and he would talk for 5+ minutes straight. He asked me 0 questions, but he had a lot of experience. He had a great resume. It seemed like a good fit. He talked a lot. So I'm like, okay, this should work out well. It's a telephone sale. It's a 1-call close. It's about an hour-long phone call. It should be great. He can talk. Put him on the phone. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Because all he did was talk about himself. All he did was monologue. He never asked questions. His closing rate was terrible. And I had to let him go because he did exactly what he did in that interview. And from that moment on, I learned, I pay attention when I'm interviewing somebody because that's exactly who they're going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, in sales, you need to be a good listener too, right? You can't just talk about yourself or whatever you talk about. But if you have a conversation, right, and if you're the one who talks the most, then that's not a good conversation to have because you're not really giving the opportunity to the other person to have their input.
Right? No. And, the easy thing to remember is we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice as much as you talk. Nobody cares about you. Seriously, nobody cares about you or your opinion or your friends or your awards. Nobody cares. They care about themselves. So the best way to show them you care about who they are is get them talking. Ask lots of questions, make them talk. If it's an hour-long conversation, you don't have to say anything, right? Just get them talking. They will sell themselves. They will feel like you care about them because you actually listened and you're the only person in their whole life who probably listens to them right now. And they will just want to buy from you because they feel like you care.
Now, sometimes that means that conversation is going to be longer because you're giving it more focus, right? You're giving it more effort. You're going through more questions, and you're really giving that person an opportunity to speak. So there's an interesting one because sometimes businesses have a lot of leads, right? A lot of leads coming through, and then that salesperson, if they don't have enough salespeople, they're trying to get through all the leads. And then they might be sacrificing on the time they spend per lead or per conversation, right? What is more important here? Having a 10 good quality conversation and having a better conversion, or just having 100 leads and then showing, okay, yeah, I followed up 100 leads, but then conversion was really rubbish.
Results are all that matter, right? Is closed deals in this case, right? Yeah. Same thing with sports. Doesn't matter how many shots you take in basketball. Did you guys win the game? Right? Some games you might take 2 shots. Sometimes you may take 50 shots. It's all about what wins the game that day. And same thing with sales. Did you close sales? Are you meeting the numbers? Are you hitting your goals, hitting your quota, making money? Is everyone happy? If the company is generating too many leads and you're stuck on longer phone calls that are effective and you're closing deals, that's a company problem. They got to dial it back because they'll learn that they're wasting money on marketing or they need to hire more people.
Yeah.
But do whatever it takes. Now, the caveat with this and the part to watch out for is using that order taker language. There's a lot of people who have long conversations. They're afraid to sell. They're afraid to move the conversation to an actual transaction and sale.
No. That's
And so what happens is they chat, and all of a sudden, half hour later, they're Facebook friends and they're talking about restaurants and they're talking about life, and they've got nothing. It's long conversations that result in sales all day, right? Like do that all day. It's about quality over quantity.
Yeah. And there's a specific set of questions that you should be asking to navigate. And like you said, be in control of that conversation. You don't need to ask them about anything else. You really want to find out where they're coming from, what is their problem. Then you meet them halfway. You respond back to make them aware that you've listened to them, so they feel comfortable that you've listened. You repeat their problems back to them, and then you provide a solution. You go through the program, you go through what the offering is, and then you've got those specific questions. Okay, well, is that something? Is that sound like what you've been looking for? And you want to get a yes, and then you want to go into. I mean, I'm just sort of going off a typical script that we have in a gym, right? But like you said, the conversation is important to have that conversation, and quality conversation. Go for it. If it takes longer, if you ask them a question and they keep on talking to unravel their answer, keep them talking, because they're all really good golden nuggets. And while they're talking, you need to do the only one thing, and only is really pay attention, maybe make notes so that you can then repeat it back to them just to summarize what you've listened. And then, make sure you go for that sale, right? You got to, it should be smooth. If it's, and the other really good thing is when you get people to talk, is you get to find out, the emotional desires, their true why. And then when it comes to that sort of a last stage where you are going for the sale, you started to use those, closed sale questions, you might get some objections, right? And if you do all the homework at the start, well, overcoming that objection is actually quite easy, because you can just come back to them and say, well, look, based on what you said, it looks like it is really important for you to achieve X, Y, Z. So wouldn't it make sense to sign up? Or no. So why would you justify looking at the price, which is literally just a number that's going to come out of your account, over this goal that you're trying to achieve, that you've told me that you've struggled to achieve for the last 5 years, and it's making you feel miserable, right? It's an investment, right? Or like that. I mean, just that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that's pure gold that you just talked about. And that's where a lot of people who are in sales miss the mark, is because they don't actually know that. They don't know why somebody should sign up and what the reasons are for them. And then when objections come up, or price or anything comes up, they don't know how to tie it back to what they actually want, right? They don't have the ammunition to confront those fears, right? Because it's just their fear of change that's coming up. So you just need to battle that, because you know what they want if they told you. And then it just comes down to, hey, what would it be like if you were to lose weight or feel better or be healthy? Like, what would that be like in your life? Okay. Yeah. I mean, does this matter? Like, okay, well, this seems like a lot of money. Let me ask you, what would it be like in your life? Let me just ask you, like, what would it be like? What have you tried before? What happened last time you tried this on your own? Okay. So it seems like this would make the sense. And the only difference that I do a little different than what you say is I don't ask. I know I'm the professional. And so a lot of times it's asking for the close. I just say, based on what you told me, this seems like the best thing for you to do. So the next step is I need you to fill out this form, and then we'll get you set up, and you just let me know when you want to begin, like next week or the week after. I'm not asking. I'm just assuming. Right. So, because I'm the professional and I care, and I'm doing the best thing I can for them.
Now, somebody might still say, well, that's still sort of like very pushy. That still might feel like, oh, this is very, very direct. But I say no to that, because again, they've come to you with a problem. You've solved it. And like you said before, people sometimes is that monkey brain, that little brain, that brain of fear is controlling them. And we are the ones who have to help them navigate through it, make that decision. So sometimes you have to be direct. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, because you're the professional. As long as your intentions are pure, You want the best for them. You can actually help them. You're not selling them crap they don't need. And you're a professional in some capacity, right? Whether even if you're just a salesperson in a cubicle, you see yourself as a professional, then that in my mind, that's permission enough to move people forward with things that will help them.